Hello all. Moved me to right here, rather long gnawing at me life load. I guess I want to hear not so much advice, but opinions on my situation, how to be further, and probably how someone did in a similar situation. My wife has cheated on me twice. I will tell you in order. My wife I met at the Institute. She is younger than me by 3 years. I was after the army. Love carrot. And after 6 months we decided to live together. We rented an apartment, started leading a rather unsatisfying student life. We lived soul to soul, rejoiced at life's little pleasures. We never fought or quarreled much. Then my parents helped me buy my first apartment, and after 5 years of living together, I finally started earning more or less while studying for my degree. I should note that in all 5 years of my life, I never went out. I never even flirted with anyone. I thought that my wife did not deserve it. Because everything was perfect in the domestic plan, the apartment was always cleaned, my clothes were ironed, she always cooked delicious food. No claims of infidelity were ever made against her either. She never flirted with anyone or anything. But then I started chatting with a couple at work. They had been in a relationship for literally a month. Interesting, fun guys. Just at that point, I got my wife a job at the same company. We started communicating with the families, so to speak. Joint outings to nature and trips to visit. Well, everything as usual friends. But one day, a girlfriend asked me to give her a ride home after work, and then I realized that she was into me. I must say that I had noticed that she liked me before, but she was a very pretty girl, and I was even impressed by that. I did not pay much attention to this, because I have chosen a fairly clear position in life. Wife to cheat, and not to change the little things. At the same time, my workload increased manifold. I started to work on Saturday and Sunday to furnish the apartment and provide my wife with clothes. My wife began to meet more and more often with our friends without me. We would go to the movies in the park and have fun. My companion's financial problems were not so acute. He was from an affluent family and could afford to work without much strain. At the same time, my friend's girlfriend once again asked me to give her a ride home. On the way home, she confessed that she liked me, that she was not in a relationship with her boyfriend, and that they were about to break up. So we kissed, and she made me in the car. After that, I flew home quickly. My conscience gnawed at me. I felt disgusted at my betrayal. I told this girl to keep quiet. Nothing was going to happen with her, and it was like nothing happened. Since then, I tried to avoid their company. My wife naturally continued to communicate with them, as I thought at that time, and immediately quit her job. And from colleagues, I learned that almost then she broke up with her boyfriend. I wondered who my wife went to the movies with and visited her house. If there has not been a couple there for a long time, and he is alone. Naturally, in the evening, I asked the question. On what the wife told me that she had, but she felt so sorry for their couple that she tried her best to make them up, and the guy wants to dodge the light, so I asked her advice, and they talked for a long time. Anyway, that's when I realized for the first time that this is some kind of screw-up and the wife is staring me. I called this light and decided to ask what was really going on there. To which she told me that she broke up with him almost immediately after his dismissal, and they do not communicate at all. But why does he go to the movies with your wife, wonder? In general, I was torn by vague feelings, like myself allowed too much. I think, well, even if it was flirting, like I'm sad betrayal will be removed. I think I will ask my wife not to communicate with him anymore, and that will be the end of it. But I could not even imagine my wife's reaction. After this request, she almost threw a scandal that she and this dude are friends. They have a good friendly communication, and she cannot do so because he feels hard, like the world has left him, and he, poor thing, is suffering. I was shocked. My rose-colored glasses came off, and I began to realize that I was either about to start growing horns or had already started growing horns. I refused to believe it though. I decided to find concrete evidence because I did not want to just show and scandalize. I kind of owed it to her and to him too. I began to watch and realized that my wife had blocked all the social networks, although before that I had sat quietly in her contact and listened to music. I did not have my own page. I was classically burned. Saw a text message to Adam Kipitz, Lubov Markov, butterflies in the belly and how they want to be together. And the best part, discussing the situation as if she would not get knocked up after their last fuck best condom. It gets worse. I was, if I may say so, unspeakably lucky. My laptop, which I rarely used, still had his page open. He was kind of a music lover, and every time they came to visit, he would play music from his page. Got burned classically. Saw texting Adam Kick-Ass, Love Markov, butterflies in my stomach and how they wanted to be together. And most interestingly, they discussed the situation as if she hadn't gotten knocked up after their last fuck of the best condom. It gets worse. I was, if I may say so, unspeakably lucky. My laptop, which I rarely used, still had his page open. He was kind of a music addict, and every time they came to visit, he would play music from his page. And there he was also discussing with his best friend how and where he grilled my wife. And the creepiest part was that one time it was right in our apartment when I was drunk, and this light fell asleep in the other rooms. And he was frying her in the kitchen, so he slapped my wife, put a bag of smut in her teeth, and threw her out on the street. She didn't put up much of a fight and went to live with a friend. I called the friend, told her everything, brought her home, and did not leave her side for 2 days. I sort of took revenge and raised my self-esteem. She was happy about it. She brought a toothbrush and panties to my apartment. My wife kind of started dating that dick. At first I kind of laughed at the situation. It was like we had a relationship. But after a couple of weeks, I almost didn't like it. In general, under any pretext drove her from the apartment and began to live alone. All the more useful from her in everyday life was not any word at all. I could not eat or wash the dishes. I could only fuck skillfully, and I did not have any feelings for her initially, only that she was beautiful. At the same time, my anger at my wife passed, and I began to feel longing. I could not sleep at night. After a week, I realized that I could not live without her, so I called her. We met and talked and decided to start over. She supported the idea at once, but as it seemed to me, without too much enthusiasm. A couple of days later, I picked up her things from her friend's house and my wife came home. But she wasn't the same person anymore. She was a stranger. When I went to bed, she still sat for a long time on social networks in the kitchen. Although before she frankly did not care. She always kept her phone with her. There was no desire to have sex. A lot of opponents appeared, such as the desire to buy branded things and go to clubs. In general, I began to follow her and realized that her relationship with this bastard did not end. They continued to meet and socialize. She suddenly had a lot of practice at the institute and some other shady business. She also started drinking all the time. Every night alone in the kitchen drinking whiskey and coke or some other kind of piss. From somewhere came a bunch of vague girlfriends with whom I was not introduced. To all my complaints, she said that this was nonsense and that she only loved me. She didn't want to do anything with the house either. In the end, I called the asshole and told him I knew everything, and if I found out one more time, I would wreck the cabin. He vowed to cut off all communication. In general, this whole song went on for another month and a half. I could try to return the attention to his wife, flowers, cafe surprises, and finally, at one point she changed. It was like before, to love me, to plan the future, to do the house. Of course, later I realized that just their relationship had come to a logical end. Either he had grown cold to her, or she to him. But then I didn't need to read any text messages. It all just became clear by her behavior. 6 months later, we got married, and a year later, we had a beautiful baby boy. I had no doubts that he is my son because he looks very much like me. Life became completely normal and flourishing. I began to earn relatively good money, My wife and child did not need anything. Bought expensive cribs, strollers, other tinsel. We began to go abroad, and not only to Turkey. I bought her a car because it was hard to walk to the grocery store with a child. I always sent my wife and my mother-in-law to the sea for a month, so they would not have to sit in a stuffy town. They planned to buy a nice big apartment, as it was getting too cramped and uncomfortable in ours. 10 years of our life together passed, and 5 years of that situation, which we recollected only as a life lesson, and a vow to never do that again, and to treasure our relationship. My job became plentiful again. I moved to another position, and more mature hobbies, fishing, hunting, and boating came up. Well, no more no less than others. I've never been a homebody, and drinking beer in front of the TV on Saturday is not my thing at all. My wife's maternity leave is over and she asked for a job, because staying at home is not her thing either. She is a smart and pushy girl, got a good job. In fact, she started to work successfully to earn normal money. A year of her working days passed, and she constantly began to complain that there was too much work and she was tired all the time. And then she got a friend of authority at work. 10 years older than her, 3 marriages under her belt, and on top of that her third husband was cheating regularly. Knowing this, I did not really approve of this communication. But I think okay, my kind of scholarly life, and in general, this friend treated me very respectfully and kindly. All evenings now I just listen to what a friend is smart and awesome, how she likes her and how she teaches her life, and that she opened her eyes to many things. After a while, there were 2 more friends at work, and the moment came when they decided to meet outside of work on Friday. You know, like a corporate party. Asked permission, like it would be at one of the 4 girls' house. They're gonna drink wine and play board games. Well, okay, let go. Well, I have corporate parties at work, too. It's still even useful to communicate with colleagues in an informal setting. And after the first incident, I ruled out any possibility of adultery in the future. After corporate party came at 4 a.m., drunk and disgruntled. Said that all this was not for her, she was tired and will not go with such a thing again. Scolded her a little, which woke me and the child. But in the morning, we had already forgotten about it. I also often spend Friday nights with my colleagues, and it's a sin not to talk over a beer and a snack. But the worm still crept in. It's one thing to be up at 1 or even 2 in the morning, and another thing to be up at 4 in the morning. The second thing that rang a bell for me was that when I flew in from a long business trip, she didn't meet me. Until then, always sat waiting in the kitchen with some delicious dinner, and here it did not even come out. Well, then went the classics, a complete fight against me, the absolute indifference to the house and child. My son is almost registered at my mother. She kind of have a lot of work, no time to take away from the nursery. Then an unreal concern for his appearance, fitness, tanning salon clothes. Again, corporate party, again 4 in the morning. At the same time, she was sending me photos of her sitting with other women and playing cards. I had a sneaking suspicion that she had re-established contact with this asshole from 5 years ago. Her behavior was very similar, and the main stupid smile sometimes in the evenings when she comes out of the other room. And then I realized that at these moments she was texting with her lover. And then somehow she left her phone on the bed. I open it, and there's a text message, "Good morning," from some prick. I call her, "What the fuck?" She excused herself, yes, like they have a team 1 guy, before she said that the team was exclusively female. She writes because she's waiting for some kind of report at work. Okay. Next I send her and her mother and child to Sochi for 3 weeks. She did not call me from there at all. When I called her in the evening, it was often busy or she had no time to talk to me. She only complained about how she had a bad time with my mom and how she interfered with her rest. In general, she wasn't happy. Well, okay. Then we finally bought our dream, a huge 3-room apartment in an elite house, and slowly began to make repairs. It was during this process While we were at the apartment, that same friend came to visit her. She went out to sort of talk in the car, and she forgot her phone, but then I got in again. And hello again. Already now, there's a message on my Viber from her to this colleague. Good night. I put the phone back and checked in the evening, and there, as it were, this message is no longer there, deleted. All clearly packed up, left the house. I cannot swear in front of the child. In the evening, I called her and told her that I knew everything. She told me her version, that she had nothing to do with it. This guy had pestered her to write, and she didn't want to tell me so I wouldn't make a scandal at work. But I'm not the first to. I saw her behavior. I started digging. The second version from her, yes, flirting was, but it's normal. Everyone does it. I started to flirt and told her that I had managed to read her message about sex before. To which there was a long silence from her. And then came the laconic, "Sorry, I'm stupid." And then I was blown away, like a hammer on my back. She had been fucking and screwing around with my colleague Roman for about 6 months while I was shacking up like a galleys and making repairs. I got drunk and trashed this coworker's apartment with my friends and got hit in the face a couple of times. It turned out that all the corporate parties were held in his apartment and not some girlfriend. The guy said that he actually had nothing to do with it. She herself climbed up to him and came home on various pretexts, and then like what to refuse if she herself climbs on the leash. In general, he made a mess, moved back to the apartment, and found himself a girlfriend. But history repeated itself. Still came home. My wife wept into the receiver, begged my forgiveness. The child cried too. The excuses were the usual ones. I underestimated her. But for a year and a half now, I can't consider her anything but a whore. I feel sorry for my son. I grew up in a broken home, and I know that it is not good, and I don't want to share the property with her, but still plan to end it as soon as the child grows up. Periodically tormented by the question that I only know about the 2 novels, and there could be more just hookups. Subtitle editor and Zakomoldina corrector Egorova. Subtitle editor and Zakomoldina corrector Egorova. Subtitle editor and Zakomoldina corrector Egorova.